Quads are the modern workhorses of backcountry recreation, but there's a problem. Buying a quad has become a challenge. There has been a very steep increase in the price of quads recently, and I mean since COVID. And sure, a lot of that can be explained with supply demand, decrease the amount of available ATVs because of chip shortages, increase the amount of hobbyist ATV users. The supply is not able to keep up with the demand, so now the used ATV market is blowing up and the prices are inflating to match a new quad value, which has increased over the last 2 years. Now, all of this doesn't really matter to you if you're not a quad enthusiast and you're not actively searching to buy one. But knowing now that quads are valuable and they're worth something, what would you say if you were offered a quad for $500? You would probably picture this quad. Well, that's ridiculous. There's no point in having a $500 quad. This is the actual quad that I was offered for that price. And I mean, yes, it hasn't run in a few years. Yes, there are some unknown factors like will it start? But it's $500, which is undoubtedly the cheapest quad on the market. I feel like in some ways I just had to find out. Is a $500 quad worth it?
Just as we were leaving, they remembered that they had this box of parts that was also out in the barn, and we had to look for it. It was under a whole pile of wood. But check out what is in here. The repair manual. So now we know it's a 1987 to 1995. We're going to narrow it down once we find the decal on there. But look how thick this book is. These are the books that are like the real deal. These tell you, look, it got everything in here. It tells you how to tear apart the transmission. Voltage regulator test points. So before YouTube, they had books like this. There's all kinds of goodies in here.
We've got a new odometer cable, starter linkage, new spark plug, top end head gasket. Hopefully we don't need that. Set of new jets for the carburetor. Hopefully we don't need that either. When you go find a barn vehicle of any kind and it's full of gas, just get rid of it right away. Don't even try and run that through the motor.
Bad.
Yeah, they didn't use yellow dyes back in the day. That's just bad gas. After purging as much of that gas as we could, I started wondering why there were so many spare parts. It's excellent that there was so many, but it did make me wonder why some of them were in there. The main red flag so far has been
No airbox.
Where's the head gasket kit? Somewhere in here there's
a head gasket
kit. That's the top end of the motor, potentially. And it's all
Exhaust
the seals.
gasket, carb one.
Yeah, it's all the seals and everything, so...
That's what the airbox looks like.
And that's what the airbox is supposed to look like, but the airbox is not in here. So if we look in here, there's nothing.
There's no airbox.
There. You can see that white pipe. That's where the airbox would plumb into, and then there's a bit of black back there where the airbox used to sit.
The other interesting thing here, this is the starter motor, so it's not even grounded, which would cause us all kinds of fun electrical issues.
So far in the paperwork, it's saying that it's a 1991 250 quad runner. But this is according to
The paperwork.
That isn't what it actually is necessarily, but it's somewhere in that range. But it does have this score. Hey, look at that. That's it's got a pull cord under the seat, which was pretty exciting.
What in the world?
So you got your like last resort.
Totally hidden. I've never seen that before. Have you seen that, John?
Yeah.
They're always hidden,
eh? Like Kickstarter.
Why don't they just like stick it right off the side here? It's because this like crazy like Porsche 911 style engine is like tucked away in the back.
Well, I mean, if it was hot and you decided you wanted to like start it up, you would burn your knuckles. Like that's the exhaust pipe right there, is it not?
Yeah, you just go, oh, why don't I just reach down there in the exhaust, give it a couple pulls.
Yeah, so we got John here. It's his day off, and he likes fixing stuff, and that's his three-wheeler over here. Look at that thing, it's mint. couple things I'm excited about on this quad. Mainly, like, the tires are in just ridiculously good shape. But there was also plenty of things to not be excited about. Here is this exhaust pipe. It looks sweet with a single exhaust pipe, but it's got something blocking it. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's see. It's got a plug. Homemade plug of some kind. After spending quite a while just looking everything over and seeing if we could find anything wrong with it, it started to make sense to just try and start it. So we put the new battery in it, which also came with it, by the way, which was great, and some fresh gas, and this is what happened.
Whoa, you hear that?
Fire to the...
What in the world is that, eh? Sounds terrible.
Mike summarized it in a nutshell. It did sound terrible, and at this point, we were feeling pretty bummed out about just having spent $500 on a lawn ornament.
Is the choke on?
I just had it on.
Okay.
Yeah, we got something going on.
Some bad carb.
Whoa. Yeah, it smells a little bit like rich. The initial excitement of having it fire and turn over was a trap because it was just enough to get us to the next stage, which was obviously carb off. Honestly, like, clean it, put it back together, it might just work.
I bet you will. I think something's unhooked in there. This seems pretty loose.
Oh yeah.
A lot of stuff in here.
Nothing's happening. Yeah, take the cover off.
Yeah.
Can you just undo that one with a flathead?
You can, but it will
Oh.
spill fuel everywhere.
I got the fuel off. I got
Oh,
it
you
turned
do?
off.
Mine's off. It won't spill much.
I'll hold it up for you.
The reason we all jump to the carburetor first is because they're notorious for having their floats stuck open or closed. When the fuel sits in there for a long period of time, it can kind of gel up, and that can cause your float to adhere to the inside of the carburetor. If it's stuck in any position, it will run poorly. For catching fuel or for catching
both. We can put both in there.
Okay. Gotta come all the way up.
As a joke?
Grab it.
The throttle. The throttle.
Yeah.
Gotta go like this. Oh, we're really leaking fuel there.
It's on its side, so it's just kind of running through. And that is a Suzuki carburetor. The float is the bottom part of the carburetor. It comes off easily. And once we had that off, we cleaned it, found a couple of stuck floats, and put it back together so we could start this thing up.
Oh, that's her. I think she's better.
Yeah. Oh,
Still
yeah, it's
very
better.
smoky.
Yeah, I think we gotta
clean it out.
keep it going
Yeah,
for a
keep it
bit
going.
longer. And I don't know, it still seems a little rich, but just keep it going. Maybe unburnt fuel in there. this point, we're all feeling pretty pleased with ourselves, so we decided to take this thing on a test ride. It seemed to be smoking a little bit, but still drove around and everything, so...
That looks ridiculous. That looks just crazy, man. It's just boiling. Oh, it was pretty greasy, yeah. Just from running with the float stuck. Maybe someone tried. Jesus Christ. It's already getting better. Is it getting better? It might be getting worse. Giving it much.
Although it was fun, we noticed that the smoke did not stop. That indicates that maybe it's not just bad gas. And when we inspected the exhaust pipe, there was a little bit of oil in the exhaust pipe. So checking the oil levels before and after, we saw loss in the oil reservoir. So that made us go deeper into this project. It's always a tough call because we're pretty deep into the rabbit hole at this point. There's always another layer. You can go a little deeper. So we decided to pull the top of the motor apart, and this is what we found.
Nothing. Smooth. Nope. Nothing. I think it's gonna work.
It looks pretty shiny.
There's a little play up and down.
Yeah.
Like there actually is a little bit. But I don't know if it's anything to get too worried about. Ouch, just cut myself. Sliced my finger.
Are you bleeding? On a rag?
Not yet. I should be good. The oil's blocked that.
Yeah, it's just gunky. Like,
Yeah,
you
just
got a lot of build-up.
Carbon buildup. They probably use some new valves.
Yeah.
They're probably not seating right. That's probably why.
Yeah. So what we found at this point is burning oil. There's some carbon buildup on the exhaust port, and there's this kind of shiny looking piston sitting there with like a tiny score in the top, and we're not sure what that's from. Oh yeah, and we have no idea what's going on with the exhaust pipe.
What is?
There must be goodies in there.
Something in there. What happened?
I mean, it's not all bad news. It looks pretty good as a lawn ornament.
We have a quad that we purchased for $500. It now has no head. It now has no exhaust.
Yeah. How are you feeling about the $500 spent so far?
Not as good as when I brought it home.
I was pumped when it fired up and we had like an actual motor that was running, but then I slowly realized that there was more to it. It doesn't feel like $500 quads are worth it at this point, but we do have to do some more diagnosing. If you have any ideas as to what might be wrong, please let us know in the comments. And subscribe so you don't miss a future video where we find out how much it's going to cost to fix this $500 quad.